All right. Hello, everybody. Another week, another Webflow live stream podcast here on Content Nest. Live stream, another live stream. Today I'm alone again. So if you have any ideas, who would you want to see here as our next guest, please share them in the comments below. If you're watching this live, say hi for us in the chat. I want to see who's here. And today we will be talking about programmatic SEO. We will not be diving extremely deep into it, but we're going to be touching basics because I noticed in the past weeks or even months, more and more people kind of are trying to discuss what it is, how it is, especially with advent of ChatGPT and other tools to kind of speed up this process. In the last decade, programmatic SEO had like a big growth in general, but especially in the past year or two, with a lot of new tools and a lot of new connections, and Webflow itself is very good for programmatic SEO. So with all that happening, I see more and more discourse happening around it. So I decided it would be a nice topic to chat today about, just kind of run through the basics and then fundamental understanding of what it is. How can we benefit from understanding how it is used? What is programmatic SEO? How it's different from other types of SEO, and a lot of things like that. So we're just going to be looking into examples and a little bit of what people do and what needs to be done, and what's the sacrifice we're making if we're doing it programmatically. What are the common pitfalls, like things like that. So if you're watching this live, please give this video a like, and it helps a lot. And just say hello in the chat, and we're gonna be starting off with it. So let's jump into it. So as I said, our guest today is just me. So let me know in the comments who would you want to be, or just tweet at search historian on Twitter and tag somebody you think we should have here. And today we're talking about programmatic SEO, or in short, just pSEO when it's typed in like that. P stands for programmatic, and we're just gonna cover a few things about what is programmatic website building, what are programmatic SEO benefits, downsides of programmatic SEO, how to know if your Webflow website can benefit from programmatic SEO, and in general your business, can it benefit or can't, and then what can't be done with programmatic SEO. That's, I think, an important distinction to make, that not everything can be done with it, and also what types of businesses can use programmatic SEO, and then we're going to touch a little bit of AI, but I think that part is a little bit more obvious, because with advent of more and more content pushed out by AI, it's kind of becoming more and more programmatic anyways, especially if you're using these tools to create content. So once again, before we jump in, say hi in the chat. I would love to see who's here, and just kind of, like always, because I'm alone, we can go on tangents, and if we decide to go on tangents, then we're just gonna do the tangent alert, and we're just gonna dive deeper. I think especially those who will be watching this live could benefit from just asking questions, because there's a lot of sites that do programmatic SEO, but maybe not everyone understands that even Webflow itself does programmatic SEO and does it good. So that's kind of the core bread and butter of what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to take a sip of water and just to start it. All right, so of course, first things first, some of you might know, some of you watching later might not know, or in general, what is programmatic SEO exactly? It's like a website building strategy when you're publishing high quality pages at scale. Now, when we say scale, that doesn't mean not necessarily very big scale or small, but it can be as little as a few dozen pages and as big as millions of pages. So of course, we all know because we work with Webflow, that Webflow has limits on that, roughly like 10,000 pages. That's how much you can have. So we're talking a little bit on that smaller scale, and we're gonna touch on that at the end on, that part of what kind of things can we do on Webflow with this kind of stuff. If you are watching this later, and if you're watching this stream later when we're not live anymore, be sure to check out one of the first streams we ever made. You're gonna find it in our channel in live section, and it's about real programmatic build with Colin that we were looking into his project, and that project is almost capped on pages on Webflow, and it kind of explains how it's built, how it's done. There's a lot of valuable real world information, especially if you're interested in Webflow Programmatic SEO specifically. But here we will be talking more about in general, like what is the thinking pattern behind Programmatic SEO? Like how do we need to think about our businesses and our client businesses and all that good stuff, So yeah, so thousands or tens or hundreds of pages at scale. And here I would actually love to take a moment to kind of think about it in general, like building websites, So because we're building pages, we have three main parameters, like every, like any freelancer or project or something, we have three main parameters, and that's like the triangle of freelancer is we all seen this somewhere probably. I'll try to center it a little bit. So we have quality, speed, and cost. So in this time we're just gonna Now, programmatic SEO is basically a method at looking at all this and saying, well, we can have this triangle in the middle, and we can do all of these three things quite decently, and that's where the magic happens. So let me type that in, and here we would be. That's where programmatic SEO kind of tries to be. It's here in the middle where you have almost no cost for your website, you have good quality, and you have speed. I mean, we all know that rule, that triangle of cost, quality, and speed is all about you can only pick two, and that's how freelancing kind of works in theory, right? If you want great quality and you want it fast, then it's going to cost a lot. If you want if you want it fast and you don't want it to cost a lot, then you're going to lose on quality. And if you want good quality and want to get it cheap, then it's not going to be fast. Now, programmatic SEO is kind of trying to fit that all, but I think that the reality, what happens is it actually sacrifices, instead of sacrificing on one, it sacrifices in theory on all of this by a little. So in reality, it would look like this. It just becomes, all the parameters become, smaller, but they still remain at similar levels. So that's kind of fundamentally how I would explain thinking about programmatic SEO for builds. That's how it kind of works. So I'm going to check the comment section. If anybody has any questions, ask them, shoot them out. With that out of the way, we're going to jump into next topics we kind of prepared. Would love to hear what you think, questions you have, or ideas you want me to dig into deeper. That's fundamentally what it is. Now, to translate this into website terms, it's probably would be, we have user experience, we have search engines, so search engines, maybe I'm going to do that. And then we have the value, or basically marketing, I would add actually. So we want to convert users. We want them to be at the bottom of the funnel so they convert easily. So that's marketing. I'm going to actually even add this here, right? So we want to create content that kind of converts our users very well. We want to be indexable, understandable, and rank on search engines, because how we're going to get traffic. And we want the UI UX, and you know what, actually content. They're usually, So, and we want the actual, when users land on our page, they need to feel like we answered their problem, we helped them, and I'm gonna come back to this later on, but in theory, that's how it's kind of is fundamentally, All right. So anybody has, hey Maggie, hey. Hey, thanks for coming. Late is better than never. Appreciate it a lot, Maggie. Hey, Aruna, thanks for being here. So we're jumping back in. Nothing much missed, Maggie. We're talking about the typical freelancer conundrum, where it's like cost, quality, and speed, and you can only pick two. And that programmatic SEO fundamentally tries to catch all three of them by being cost effective, fast, and hey, Fernando. Hey, man. Have you been to Barcelona meetup? I saw there something was happening, and I saw some pictures. I haven't been on Twitter in the past few days, a little bit busy with other stuff, but have you been there? And yeah, hey, Omkar, thanks for being here. It's awesome, guys. Really appreciate you coming live. So for those who missed, we just kind of were talking about that. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat this one more time because you guys all showed up right now. So programmatic SEO is a way to publish a lot of pages that are quite good in quality. They solve problems for users. They can be shown on search engines, and all doing that all at scale. So basically trying to do as cheap, as fast, as high quality, and as accurate as possible all at once, which is, like always in life, sounds like almost impossible. But but we're gonna discuss later what kind of skills you need to have to be able to do that. And when we say scale, once again, it can be 20, 30, a few hundred pages, and it can be hundreds of thousands or even million pages. That all depends on what you can have. And at its core, programmatic SEO, I would argue all SEO is programmatic, but just sometimes when you make something one time instead of 3,000, you don't think about it from like programmatically and template it, So it's usually just a good template and a database put together, and that's pretty much it. Hey, Penny, thanks. Hi, everybody. That's awesome. Oh, you're in Madrid. Okay. Well, I thought might be. All right. So I realized I was not really sharing my screen. So for those joining in late, that's what we kind of discussed so far. And now we're just going to jump into programmatic SEO benefits. So in theory, programmatic SEO and templated thinking and data work, thinking is just, brings a lot of benefits. First of all, you can build sites way much faster. And when we say sites faster, we mean actually you're going to be building them quite slower. But the difference will be you will build one, page template or CMS collection, and then you're going to fill it in with, hundreds of or thousands of pages of data. Import a nice CSV or just connect it to WellSync or Airtable or something, and that's how it's going to happen. So this makes content cheap, and with advent of ChatGPT, AI, and AI is quite good at producing content in some niches. As some of you might know, I've been using AI for certain types of contents where, when it hallucinates, it's not a big issue. And it's a lot of tutorial work, but like for a few years already, ever since Conversion AI showed up, then it was named to Jarvis, and now it's Jasper, I think. But then I later jumped to other tools, and ChatGPT last December kind of flipped it all on its head. And also the main importance of programmatic SEO is that you can rank for a lot of keywords, and usually that results in a lot of visitors, even if your site is fresh. So that's kind of what happens here when we think programmatically, because of that quantity. Because even if you do standard SEO, it's always like just throwing a lot of things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And when it sticks one time, you try to replicate it at multiple times, and try to kind of establish authority on that specific type of content. So I'm really arguing that all SEO in its core is programmatic. We just sometimes do it at so small scales or so small budgets or so small ambition. Actually, client ambition is another thing. Or clients say, hey, I wouldn't want to do all that hard work of that, especially data work. So we just do it at small, and then it's not programmatic. But if you do it at bigger scales and think more strategically, it usually turns out to be programmatic. So if anybody has any questions during this, let me know. We're today, I'm alone, so this means, all sorts of tangent alerts can be happening. So whatever you have, toss it at me. We're going to reach, especially when we're going to reach the next stage, which will be after the downsides. We will be looking into different examples, and then it becomes really interesting. So yeah, and spoiler, which I already did in the beginning, but I'm going to do it again. Webflow is also using programmatic SEO to grow, and that's one of the ways they were really growing real fast. So guesses in the comment section how they do it if you wanna, or just ask questions while we're touching the downsides of SEO. So just guess how Webflow is doing it. You probably all know, but I'm interested, before I explain what you guys think, how does Webflow do programmatic SEO, and is it pays out or not, or yeah. All right, so downsides of doing programmatic SEO builds and publishing your site programmatically is that there's a high risk, especially if you don't understand content in simple terms, like as one piece. If you make some mistakes and you make them in hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of pages, if it's poorly done, you can really get burned, and in many cases that would mean you can toss away your domain. So if you fail at that part, it can be that you're gonna get a manual penalty from Google, or you might just get de-indexed, and it will be really hard to index it back again if you made like lean content. So there's like a lot of things you have to consider and understand, that you cannot do it low quality, as we spoke about the website overall. Like the quality still has to be high enough so you don't get burned, because you're gonna get burned at scale, and that's like, and you will probably gonna need a new domain to start all over again. Indexing your pages can be hard, especially if you publish quite a lot of them. So like every domain in Google kind of gets what we call crawling budget, and that means that Google assumes that based on your risky, yes, because like with everything, when you make one mistake on one page, when your website is 30, 70, or 100 pages, like the regular one, well, you made one mistake, and there's not a pattern if you being trying to cheat. But if you're make that mistake and you made it on 1,000 pages, then it becomes kind of, so that's how it works, right? And then you can get burned. Yeah, so it can be a little bit risky. So indexing pages can be hard. Therefore, like lean website builds, not a lot of fast loading speeds and very low, optimized images, and a lot of things like great performance in general is very important. But also at the same time, Google just gives you some indexing budget, which is like crawling budget, and it every day tries to index this many amount of megabytes or pages, or however you want to call it, and then it grows as search engines trust your website more and more. But in the beginning, it can be a very slow and tedious process. So it's normal that it will take months or even years, to really index everything. Another thing is, because you're serving search intents with this, and programmatic SEO is as much serving search intent as it ever gets, kind of, because it's really pinpointed and planned in a way where we really understand how to solve this problem for users, and we can solve it at big scale add thousands of different keyword variations of the same similar problem, and solutions have to be adapted to that each of those thousands of keywords. So you have to be able actually to solve it. And we'll see when I show best examples of that. Programmatic SEO is not just being spammy, because a lot of people think SEO is spammy in general, which is completely not the case. Best SEO is always like great for user and insanely good content. And yes, there are rules to be like, oh, we need way much more content, or we need that and this and that. So here you have to understand that you really have to be able to solve that problem. And that's a little bit of a tricky kind of thing, because not every business has the internal team. Sometimes solving those problems require producing a lot of assets, and we're going to learn soon why. But in theory, you have to be really, really aware of what the actual search intent is, and what's the problem, and what actually needs to be there to solve that problem. But there's an upside that by doing so, usually work only with bottom of the funnel queries, because they're very specific. So converting is usually very easy afterwards, because usually those solutions involve some sort of account creation or solution or anything, and we'll see, especially in Webflow terms, you're going to get. So I'm not getting any guesses how Webflow is doing programmatic SEO. Please, if you guys are watching, just drop me a line. How do you think Webflow is doing it? Because we're going to touch that really soon. And I'm really interested what you guys think before I touch it. So yes, Webflow is doing programmatic SEO and quite a lot, but how does it do it? Tell us in the comments, and we're gonna figure out this together. All right, and the last thing is, of course, duplicate content and cannibalization. So it's kind of part of the first risk, where it's if you do something poorly, then you're gonna burn the domain, and you're gonna get thin content. So duplicate content is on the flip side. You can overdo it, or you can just not think that keywords are different when they're kind of the same, and therefore have two similar pages on your site. They're kind of answering actually same query. And then by doing so, you would have a duplicate content issue and cannibalization, which in general Google usually does. Okay, so if you have two pages equally good, but none of them are significantly better, then none of them we will not rank both of them, because that's clearly, you don't know yourself as a website owner which one is better. Therefore, it's probably neither is better, and we're not going to pick. That's not always, but quite a lot can happen. So this is something to be aware of as well. All right. So last moment to kind of any guesses on how Webflow does programmatic SEO? I really want to hear. Maggie, Fernando, Penny, Omkar, Aluna, anybody has any ideas how Webflow does programmatic SEO before we jump into examples of best programmatic SEO builds and in theory? Because I think all of you can benefit from this topic by understanding at least fundamentals if you haven't, or just kind of chatting on more tangent versions of what programmatic SEO is. This kind of helps working with clients, because it's a business decision you make. Programmatic SEO, you think it's a content strategy, but actually it's more of a, hey, we will be that business that does that. And it worked for Webflow quite a lot. It worked for a lot of other examples that we're gonna touch. And this is just a good advice if given properly to a lot of businesses, especially if they can do it, not only from research's standpoint, but from actually what their offering is. And a lot of, bigger online businesses can do it. So yeah. All right, so Maggie says, okay, Maggie's not gonna guess how Webflow does programmatic SEO. Okay, so it's risky for her probably. CMS fields. So it's how we could do it. Yes, how they give us parameters, but their content strategy in itself has it. All right, I'm not gonna tease you guys anymore further. Let's jump into it. So I collected a few examples, and I could come up with a lot of more. And with some research, I could even remember a few other good ones that I know, but I just don't remember the actual name. But in theory, I have a few kind of examples. So one of the examples is, of course, Kineticist, made by Colin. So once again, if you're really interested in how that looks in the backend on Webflow, because here we're talking more about business strategy, content strategy, website building strategy, long-term growth strategy. But if you really want to see the backend and how it actually looks when your Webflow site has 8,000 pages or something like that, Colin showed us his complete build from designer. We were looking into it for an hour. He answered all the questions. Amazing stream. One of the first ones we had, quite an old one, but still worth a watch. So later, after you're done with this, if you're interested in actually building a Webflow build programmatically, that video is awesome, And great examples are Zapier, Canva, different types. I put this one in, worldpopulationreview.com, but it can be any other data site where it answers, for example, how many people live in blank city, and then whenever you change different city, they have data on it. So that's a very high density data site, which is pure. I would say this is considered usually to be pure programmatic SEO, as in you really find a database that has a lot of data points. That database is for free. It's updated constantly. And you just basically do some API stuff or just export it every once in a while. And you kind of do a lot of data work, and then you publish it, and it's kind of done in a sense. And then Nomad List is a good example because it kind of helps you to know how much things cost in different cities. So they kind of do similar thing, but they just do more of their own research and their own kind of way. So it's not an open database. Yes, Webflow. So I'm gonna not tease you anymore. So Webflow has a formula where every category made in Webflow is a page. And then if you Google best, footer website examples and free designs, so you either Google footer website examples or footer website designs, you can land in this page, and then insert any word instead of footer. So freelancer, what else is there? SaaS, any type of thing you input instead of footer, Webflow will have a page for it. That's how they do programmatic SEO with user-generated content, because Webflow has your clonables that they show, and or they can show actual templates that you can buy, but that would be a template query. So whenever you want to see a website design example or just the website itself, you want to see one of Webflow clonables. And that's how they do programmatic SEO with user-generated content. So we generate clonables for them. They group them. They pre-package all the data. I mean, not the data, the headings, the little bit of content maybe, or this and that. And then whenever somebody's looking for any type of website examples or designs, they might land on Webflow. And once again, a reminder, just change footer for any type of word, and Webflow will probably have it, a page on that. That's how Webflow does programmatic SEO. And that's why most bigger, especially tech and software companies, but not only also tech and software, there's a lot of other industries you can do this in, even if it's physical things. That's how they do it. So they just make sure that every possible page for every possible query is created, and that's programmatic SEO fundamentally, right? If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. Would love to kind of chat more about this if you have any specific ideas, but that's how Webflow does programmatic. And of course, sites like G2, Glassdoor. So G2 just kind of basically is a powerhouse of insert tool and alternatives, and then you're gonna find a page on that. So any online tool, they have a list of similar tools, and it's quite simply done. It's actually very, I would say their approach, the way G2 does it is very Webflowy, as in we could easily create that with Webflow for a more smaller niche, not all tools, but maybe website builders. I've seen sites actually that done that. So, and we're gonna touch on different parameters that you have to assume and different query types that you have to assume. But yeah, G2 is a good example of comparison type of programmatic site. Glassdoor kind of just does, salaries in cities. So that's how they do programmatic. So, it's like any industry or job title, salary in, and then area that it's in. And they have like both those, industry and job type. And the location is changeable. So these all do all sorts of combinations of that, and then you have a site, a web page where you land. You can see how much these types of professionals make in that area, and they just have data for all of that. So that's how they do it. And booking Airbnb, it's kind of the same business, just very simple, apartment rent in, and then insert any city. That's how they do programmatic SEO. If you're looking at this list, I intentionally didn't pick only basically one that is actual pure old school, 10 years ago type of programmatic SEO. And it shows how it evolved and how it's not a swear word anymore. Because the only one I kind of picked that kind of old schooly is the World Population Review, because it's really driven on that data work, on that open database of, there's some sort of database somewhere which is open to the public. You can just get an API connection to it, and it has different statistics of different cities around the world or different countries around the world or any type of other different statistic, and it's constantly updated. So just use that free database, turn it into each one into a page that answers a specific search query, which is in most cases, how many people live in city, how many people live in country, how many people live in continent, how many people live in the world, and things like that. And you just have all that data presented. It's quite simple. It doesn't need a lot of content in it. It just input, output, very simple, very, very, very simple. And others are, as you can see, businesses that we know, love, and use and understand, but they're using it in a way. So before we jump into formulas that they're using, I want to kind of, talk about SEO versus programmatic SEO. And by the way, once again, guys, if anybody has any questions, go nuts. We're just gonna go on tangents. We're gonna look into sites. We're gonna do whatever you guys want, as long as you have any specific questions, because I'm alone today. So this means, any type of site tracking we can do. So coming back to the difference between SEO and programmatic SEO, we would probably find more differences in that, but the core ones are, so classic SEO is a little bit slower. It has better quality. And when I say better quality, I mean pages are better, not pages, content maybe is better. Pages can or cannot be better, depending on the ability to develop them and the UI, UX inputs beforehand, because what benefit programmatic SEO has, because you're gonna be making design for 1,000 or 2,000 or 20,000 pages or something, you really usually put a little bit more effort than when you are designing something a CMS collection that will just have 3 pages in it or something. So, but content is better in quality and more precise, because you're looking at one problem at once. So just sit down, look at, okay, so what would visitors want to see if they have this issue? I make that page and we're done. And in most cases, typical SEO needs to have all levels of sales funnel content inside it to work, because you also want to show authority, even for those that are on the top of the funnel, because that's usually where the most traffic comes from, right? And when you do typical SEO, you're going for those traffic numbers, right? So you're still seeking those, we need thousands of visitors instead of 3 a month. We want a few thousand better than 3 a month. With programmatic SEO, everything is on the flip side. So you can do things faster, given understanding that the preparation takes way much longer. But after that, the speed is insane. Like, you can do very fast things. It's in general assumed that it's lower in quality, but that's not entirely true. That's why I was saying kind of these two SEO branches, I would say, are the same. We just have to understand that there are two methods: moving fast and breaking things, and moving slow and being very specific about each detail. So specific about each detail, moving slower, aiming your shots more directly and testing theories that way, typical SEO. Moving faster, breaking things, shooting, at 1,000 directions at the same time and seeing what sticks, programmatic SEO. So it's in theory lower in quality, more templated, but at the same time, the big benefit of programmatic SEO is because keywords are quite long tail, and yeah, let me know if you guys don't know what long tail keywords are. I would glad to be explaining that a little bit on the sidetrack, so just drop that in comments. But yeah, that means that bottom of the funnel, very specific queries, and very easily, it's easy to convert people that land on those pages because they already very much understand what the problem they are having, and they are very precisely looking for a very precise solution, and you just give it to them, and that's how they convert to your whatever. But they also give them the solution for free even if they don't want to convert, right? So that's what happens with these two types of SEO. If you guys have any questions, happy to hear them. And now we're jumping into the next section of today. It's how to do keyword research. And instead of explaining how to do it, I decided to just show some examples from websites we love, and then we're gonna touch on the different types of. Penny's asking how to find long tail keywords. I will try not to forget after we run through the formulas, because I think that will answer the question. So keep that question and repeat it again if after we're done with this keyword research part and long tail keyword research, if you don't get the parameter of what we're looking for. But to answer it quickly before we jump in, is in theory you have to find, you have to have SEO tools that show you at least some sort of traffic of expected kind of search volumes, and then you have to look for patterns that are scalable, that query repeats itself. If you change one word, it repeats and repeats. And usually best long tail keywords have two variables. So we would have, and now I'm going to jump to your example, we would have Zapier, right? So you know what, I'm going to just do the thing where we're just going to copy it, take it out, put it here, and talk about it like this. So Zapier is a good example. We all know Zapier. We all know what Zapier does. It connects two tools together. That's how their programmatic SEO works. It's tool 1 and tool 2 integration, and input any tools in between, and they have a page for it. And they also will have pages for Webflow integrations, and they will show different tools, but that's an SEO thing that they need, like just internal linking. But in theory, what we know Zapier and love for is their main offering of value, which is connect two tools together, and that's how their programmatic SEO works. The more tools they add to their database, basically the more APIs they kind of convert to Zapier, right? The more they have to show for us, right? So what basically happens is you have a long tail keyword, which is not commonly searched, not millions of searches per month, not thousands, but maybe hundreds or tens, depending on the tool. When people have a problem, I want to connect this to this, and Zapier makes sure that every time this query is inputted, they have a page for it, even if it's just one visitor per month looks for that, it's still valuable because that visitor needs Zapier desperately. So that's like a good example of Zapier. All right, let's take another one. So Canva, probably all of you know what Canva is. And Canva is a tool that allows you to create designs without the need of designer, right? So, and their marketing teams use Canva very oftenly for different types of campaigns because there's levels of design work, there's levels of illustrations, there's levels of a lot of things, and sometimes you don't need an actual graphic designer or just brand designer or something to do some basic stuff and push out a campaign in like a few hours. So Canva tries to solve that because their all of their template base, which is different templates that you can just click and reuse and start moving things around, changing colors, adding your logos and things like that. They're categorized into categories that are, Instagram story templates, business Instagram story templates, freelancer Instagram story templates, and things like that. So they're always gonna take some sort of niche, they're gonna take some sort of marketing target, and they're gonna just add templates after it. And if it's like some sort of a visual design thing that they can have, they're going to produce quite a few templates using their own tool, and they're just going to publish it, and people land there and can reuse it. Of course, that's where the Webflow comes in, because people will make the account, they will log in, they will start using free Canva, and eventually they will turn into from leads to paying customers, right? So that's Canva. Another example. So this one we spoke about, so it's very simple. There's many sites like that. Any type of data sites, we call those data, because just, any metric you're looking, this can be currency exchange metrics, which, by the way, Google, if it's really simple programmatically, Google will usually create their own widget that just shows, stocks. But earlier in the day, pages, sites like that showed stocks, weather, and a lot of things like that, they're programmatic builds, like what's the weather in, and then any city. That's a programmatic approach. So there's a lot of them, but they're dying out, so I don't want to go into deep. We have to understand the better examples that we have today. Right. So the next one is another similar example. It's Nomad List, and I don't know if you guys ever tried to Google about moving to another place or just visiting it, and you want to find out how much a steak costs in that city. Well, Nomad List will have that answer. So they will have, two people dinner plus a glass of wine, and a low tier restaurant will cost roughly that in this city. And then, expensive dinner will cost roughly that. So you can check up on prices of things, you can check up on rent, you can check up a lot of things. And they all do that by just having data on different areas and cities of the world for different things that they measure it against. Like, how much does a gallon of milk cost there? How much, a kilogram of tomatoes cost there, and things like that. So that's another programmatic approach, which is kind of similar to the old ways, but this is a little bit more creative, I would say. All right, so Kineticist, again, watch the video. It's a pinball site that kind of tries to solve a problem where to play pinball in different cities. Wait, I'm gonna just change it. So different cities around the world, and it just solves that by just having a database of different places where you can play pinball all around US, I believe only US. And it also utilizes some databases, utilizes a lot of data work. And again, reminder, if you want to learn about actual build that is made like this in Webflow, check out the video we have in live. We had a live stream with Colin, and it's really, really worth checking out. Yeah, so again, about Webflow we spoke a little bit, but yeah, it's basically, if you take that formula and dissect it of how they do programmatic things, it's quite simple. Wait, I'm gonna just, yeah. So Webflow does it by just knowing that Webflow users are not converted anymore. So Webflow leads will usually look for inspiration of how to make a website, or how to take a design and reuse it, or things like that. So by knowing that, they just create pages for every possible keyword combination that solves a very specific niche down problem. And it worked for Webflow very amazingly because they have pages for maybe things that only 3 people Google in a month, but it still works because they land, and Webflow not only provides them with all the templates that they might need, but also most of those templates might be even clonable, so they can just click register for Webflow, clone it, and use it. So that's how they use programmatic SEO for that. All right, and then I ended with two kind of more open-end formulas. So let me try to put it like this. Yeah. All right. So most e-commerce websites in a way use programmatic SEO, even though it's called e-commerce SEO. But in theory, they just want to make sure that every category of products that they have is listed on their website. So, and all user-generated product projects, which by the way, Webflow is a user-generated programmatic SEO build because dev designers make their templates in most cases. In the beginning, it was probably some of them were empty pages, and you can grow this gradually. But yeah, that's one of the things that's happening. User-generated content and e-com sites kind of run on these formulas all the time because user-generated content, you're not in control of the content itself, but you're in control of the maybe main heading, so H1 and a lot of other things. So you're kind of trying to, there's a lot of good examples in USG, but then it's another story that we open another Pandora about how to control it, how to put different types of content that users generate together, and there's a lot of things. So, and then another thing that is very common, which will open another topic for us, is comparison websites. So, for example, phone versus phone, or car versus car, or specific anything versus anything, or compare this to that, is a programmatic term, because in theory you just create collections with each one of those things, and then you just create another CMS collections that cross those things together, and where you can see, you know, iPhone versus I don't know, some sort of pixel camera specs together in one area, and that's how you do it. So that's one approach. It can work for any type of consumer product. It can work for any type of tool. So for example, if you would type in WordPress versus Webflow, you can programmatically do that, especially, but then there comes the problem. If you would do that, and you would have a page, if you would do all the website builders, right? So Framer, Webflow, WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, and then a lot of other smaller tools that are existing there. And you would put them all together, and you would make that Webflow versus and any other tool has a page. What happens is some of those pages will have will not rank ever because they're very high in search volume. Not a lot of, so for example, assumption, Webflow versus WordPress, it's searched a little bit more than Webflow versus Framer, but Webflow versus Wix, it's searched even less. And the more down the line you go, the easier it kind of gets in theory. And especially if you can, so programmatic builds have to determine what kind of content they can do. Because a lot of ways, if it has to be high quality, custom, one-on-one content, then you have to write a blog post, or just a page that's really optimized for it. So it's not going to be programmatic at the end. That's why I was saying, like, SEO in theory is programmatic fundamentally, because you do that even if you do one by one. And that's where the issues kind of start, when you have to understand, can you do it? So this brings us to Penny's question: how to find good long tail keywords. So there are a lot of tools, and I'm not going to mention them, but if you start looking for long tail keyword searchers, and there's like Keyword Shitter and different other types of tools, and there's so many just showing up, and Ahrefs can do that, and SEMrush can do that. A lot of things, like any tool that allows you to determine how simple it is to rank for it, is already a tool that can give you that. There are tools that specialize in long tail. There are tools that specialize in just SEO tools. So any tool, but what you're looking for is a cluster of keywords that can be redone, differently for multiple times with different variables changed. So that's kind of what you're trying to look for. And the bigger, as we say, cluster you find and the easier it is to rank for it, the better kind of programmatic SEO idea you have. Which brings us to next item on our list, and we're closing into the end. So if you guys wanna have any other questions, please don't be shy, ask them. The hour is almost going to the end, so we're just gonna run through a few things, but any other questions I will answer still. So yeah. All right, so how to plan content for programmatic SEO. Here, I just put a few things together, made it simple, didn't want to go into too much detail because every different build, every different website I worked where we did some stuff programmatically, then some stuff custom, then programmatically on top or differently, or just completely programmatic or whatever. Every time it's a very different idea because every time you have to really adapt things to the specific thing that is happening. Because if you're, serving templates, then somebody has to be, for example, Canva example, right? If you would make a site like Canva and know that this is your 7-year or something strategy, you would need to create workflows of people creating those templates for specific queries. And also you would need to measure how many other competitors, how many, for example, templates do they suggest, right? And so you would think, okay, so for this query, we have to make 40 templates. For this, just 5 is okay. For this, don't put anything there. Just put a CTR to CTA to, or whatever. So there's a lot of different things that might be involved, and it's really hard, but I still try to kind of summarize some of the basics that I assume happens all the time, and based on my experience. And that being said, Fernando has a question. So, interested in those tools of Chrome extensions for SEO? Sure, have done tutorials about them. I have, one second. I have a video on the channel where I did agency tools. And wait, one more sec. Let me double check that for you. And I'm gonna drop in a screenshot. So you can DM me for more specific stuff. Here you go. So there's this video, not in lives, but in just video section. Look it up. There's I mentioned a few things here and there, but in theory, it's not that much SEO tools. So if you look at this and you still have any specific questions, there are many. Just DM me on Twitter and I'm gonna try to look up, because I know quite a few, but I don't use them. And I tested quite a few, but I don't use them. Yeah, all right. You're welcome, Fernando. So yeah. All right, so coming back to the how to plan content for programmatic builds. So first of all, you have to understand competitors and search engine results, because they will determine what kind of content you have to produce, what kind of UI UX needs to be there, what kind of, wait one sec. Let me drop into this. So what kind of thing you have to build, because there might be big players and you have to understand how much energy they have, how big those sites are, how old they are, and a lot of other things, right? So there's a lot of, but with any business project, this is normal. You're just doing market research, you're trying to analyze, you're trying to put yourself in the way. And if it's, if the industry is diluted, if the industry is very dense and there's a lot of players, it could be that there's either two ways not to do it or to do it better. And that's SEO fundamentally what it is, build a better website than your competition. That's always what I work on with my clients. It's always, and I know it's daunting for some clients and teams we work in, because you look at it and say, well, these guys are very good. And you're like, but we have to be better fundamentally, because otherwise we're just wasting time for everybody, for ourselves and for our users. And then you just start working on those metadata and other formulas and try checking them with keyword tools and a lot of, this is actually not good. I'm just gonna jump back to the around smaller view. No, this one, wait, okay, this one, sorry. So another thing you do is you try to determine those modifiers. So, and the most typical modifier we have usually, is The most typical formula, for example, for blog posts, so this would mean you're not even making programmatic SEO, you're just writing a lot of blog posts. So let's say best modifier for, and then we just put that again. That's your typical blog post title, heading in most cases, right? You're writing a blog post where you're gonna list a list of things for a list of, and this can be a problems or a profession or things to do or whatever. It's fundamentally what it is, even if you write a specific blog post, right? So example would be best phones for gamers or something, right? So that's like your core simplified version of that when you do that in blog. But here you're looking for a more specific, simple, data-driven or solution-driven things where you don't need to actually work that much in theory. But in practice, if it's your business like Canva, you might just need to create, thousands of templates for that solution. So yeah. Now, this brings us to the next step, which is long tail keyword or articles instead. You have to determine how many you might not work, how many terms you might not rank for, and what you're going to do about it. Either you know that, okay, so the most highest difficulty keywords we will not rank for, but we will rank for the lower ones, and then we have to create articles and do redirects or things like that. So basically, you're trying to establish how much custom work will there need to be, because every programmatic SEO build, in my opinion, needs custom work. Yes, you start with a base of everything is just pushed into the database and it's published, and here you go. But then on the same time, for best results, you always open one by one and start optimizing it for that specific one case scenario. And that brings us to the next thing, which is content types. So because you're making a database, and in our case, we call it CMS collections, right? You might need quite a few of databases, but then you might be able to mix and match them in different ways to generate different types of keyword formulas. So for example, let's think about it this way. So I'm just gonna do this, highlight it. All right. So imagine you have a list of, you made a database of all website builders. There's Webflow, WordPress, everything. And you just added as much info as you can. The date it was launched, who's the owner, how many users, how many websites, all things of data work, right? So whenever somebody Googles, when was Webflow founded, you might show up. When was WordPress founded, you might show up. How much Webflow costs? Well, you won't show up, but you might also have that data on the page. You might also explain a lot of things here and there about Webflow, but you're not ranking for very specific things. You're just ranking for that data work, right? When was Webflow founded? Then you can match all that data to be Webflow versus Framer, Webflow versus WordPress. And then you just use that collection to put two things together and show them side by side to compare things. And again, this might work better not for when it was founded, but for features or for things like that. So now you have pages for, just because you have that one collection, you added some extra work, and now you have a collection of comparison pages. And for other types of businesses, this can be pages of solo specs, which basically, you're asking, if it would be phones, then you ask like questions about the camera of a specific phone. Then you would make a page, camera specifications of, and then insert that phone. So you create another collection of just solo specs or something. And then it might be locations in different types of businesses. So there's a lot of ways to mix and match content to produce, those identifiers, mix them together. And you have to determine that part, which will be always the hardest part of any build. And ideally, this is done in the beginning. At least you should know, and then you can pick your, minimum valuable product, and then say, okay, we're gonna just start with the simple, and then we're gonna move to something else and things like that. So focus on search intent user value. Okay, so here is very important. Programmatic SEO fundamentally is a lot of pages at scale. So you would think, okay, so they're lower in value, but in reality, they have to be kind of higher in value because there's not going to be a lot of people coming into your pages by default. Not always the case. So this would mean that you want to focus really on solving the issue that visitors will have. And like, again, Canva and Zapier is a good example of that. They just solve an issue, and they did it back in the day. They just came up with this, hey, what if, somebody Googles design, and there's another types of websites, for example, that just give you, freelancer contracts for something, and then they just give you free template for it, but you probably have to log into their platform because they're just like some sort of document signing platform or something. So this is where current programmatic SEO practices are usually the best ones that are there, are really, really solve the problem. Really specific, really niche down, but really good. It gives you free resources. It gives you whatever you need. And so you have to really understand, okay, so what is that value? What would make a visitor not even think about connecting their, for example, Gmail account to your tool and just make an account and export it or whatever? What would actually solve that value? Because that's gonna affect the overall behavior on the site, and then you're gonna rank higher, and that's the whole thing comes together, because the more people visit it and don't just click out, the better you rank on other terms, and that's how you grow like exponentially. And other terms that might not have been ranking now also went up, and that's how you go from a few hundred to a few thousand to a few million traffic, like in this exponential growth, because you're really focusing on value, right? So create, scrape, get, collect data. All right, so this part, then if your build needs some sort of data work, you have to get it somewhere. So there's open databases of a lot of things, and you can find them there. Sometimes you need to scrape it. There are tools that scrape data. There are, last case scenario, you hire a virtual assistant and just tell them what to do, what kind of information you gather from the internet, and work on that. So you work on your spreadsheet, you work on your CSV file, you work on whatever. And sometimes you need to set up that data in a way. Sometimes you scrape what you can before to determine what is out there, what you will have to fill the blanks on. And you think, oh, so we can do that without any hard work. Well, in theory, that's not true, because, the example I was telling you about how much does a pizza cost in I don't know, Los or something, somebody has to actually check that, right? And sometimes you can check that online, but some things you cannot check online. So it all comes down to being, finding the benefit and reward from hard work and price and time and all that things, kind of finding, but still, let's don't forget, you're focusing on user value, and it has to be really high. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. Balancing out like always, right? So make page template. Again, none of these are in a specific order, because it's all, for me, all of these things are happening in all of my SEO projects, not only programmatic ones, what we would call, but other types. And then it's just kind of everything is happening around, because you improve a template, because you found more data, because you think of that, because you came up with a keyword, and we have to update this template. Like everything is happening all around. So so make the page template, make the templated input fields like in your database or something. Work on that, and it's a never-ending improvement. It's a never-ending improvement loop. That's always how it works, right? All right. So the next thing is database well-sync, or just upload CSV. So well-sync is a tool, for those who don't know, that can connect Airtable to Webflow. And it's an awesome tool. So that's one way to do programmatic, by just feeding everything into Airtable and then feeding everything out into Webflow. And that's really, really, really good idea, especially for bigger builds. But then but you can always do a CSV. So just any spreadsheet, turn into a CSV, upload it, and then re-upload it to edit. So WhaleSync has a two-way sync. So there are benefits to that. It's quite expensive, but at the same time, it's valuable for a lot of decent builds. And I work with builds that would not even be able to be controlled at the scale you can and a speed that you can grow them without whale seeing. So it's just, that's Webflow, right? That's how you would do it. And the last thing that I really cannot stress enough, everybody thinks it's programmatic SEO. We're just gonna push out the content. We're just gonna be like, yeah, this is it, we're done. Thank you very much, goodbye. I never seen a successful site that didn't do custom editing or things like that. Sometimes that custom editing happens at all template level, but I always would plan from the beginning that we have to have ways to customize that content. So if there's a lot of formulas put together that turn into other formulas, it becomes quite hard. A good example would be on Webflow. If you make you can put two H1s together, and for the user, it will look like one H1, but you would just pull one from the CMS, one word, and then the whole H1. So for example, buy, best, and then category name, shoes, purses, something, right? So there's two H1s. You can do the same with custom code, just like embed it and then input it by code and just assign the field. But fundamentally, that's how you would do it. The issue with that is, like, in theory, you have two H1s on the on homepage, but yeah, they're solvable. So what happens if you choose this route as opposed of writing each H1 with Google Sheets formulas, concatenate, add this to this to this? What happens is, if you don't push it as a string itself, as a full heading, but you just change that one word, if you have to change one heading on the whole template then it becomes impossible. So I always, as a caution, opt in for more data work prior, but more flexible later, rather than faster solution with just one word, input it into a specific formula. But I also do it so fast with sheets and things like that. I can prepare those hundreds and thousands, maybe even headings, if I want to programmatically on sheets, that I don't see it as a problem. But if you do, then stick to just change one word way, identifier, and just change it. If you want to understand that in the beginning, there's going to be improvement on a singular basis, plan for that from the get-go. All right, any questions, guys? We're gonna be finishing soon, so I'm happy that most of you stayed so long here. This is awesome, and then I'm gonna be topping off with a few ideas that I have about Webflow in terms of programmatic SEO, but really love to hear what you guys maybe have any specific things. As I said in the beginning, this is more of an entry level, just intro to some ideas, fundamental things. But if you guys have something specific, yeah, would love to still answer. I try to treat these as a kind of live SEO support as well on Thursdays, so I would love to hear any ideas. So yeah, this is not, let's do it this way. Right. I didn't finish this list, not gonna lie. It's not that I was lazy, but I just realized there's so many things that I cannot guess based on a specific project or thing that you want to do with Webflow, even though I dabbled quite a bit. So just one idea I had while preparing this and take it down was that every CMS collection, and I always forget to add this, not everybody will know. Right. Yes. So every CMS collection, it's kind of programmatic SEO build, small programmatic SEO build fundamentally, right? Because you have metadata. Yeah, I'm glad you say that, Penny. Yeah, I was going for beginner level because anything more advanced relies on very specific niche. So then you have to pick a very specific type of product, project, idea, or something. Then you have to look into keywords and then sometimes realize that you will never rank for them and scrap that idea. There's so many different areas where this is used because fundamentally all sites are that. You just think in the terms of a lot of H1s. I think, okay, so there's going to be 300 H1s. Which ones are the best? Is it programmatic? I don't know. Even if every page is custom designed, but still, because you have to think, okay, so where are we going to win and lose, and how fast it is and how easy, and always the balancing. I'm glad you think that this is that was what I was aiming for, to just kind of talk a little bit about like fundamentally what it is and how it's not that different from SEO. So every CMS collection you make on your Webflow website for you or your clients or for anybody is fundamentally kind of a small programmatic SEO build in its own, right? What do you mean, Penny? Obscure product that people almost never need. It can be a good thing, because almost can be the keyword here. And then that would mean that whenever they actually need it, it's easy to rank for it, and conversions at 100%. So, selling water next to a burning house is while the fire station guys arrive is quite a good business plan. So how they say, in the gold rush, sell shovels. So sometimes that's a good way to have a good salary and just live your life easily. If it's almost never need, is not actually never. It's just not always. So and when you think about it that way, then you kind of understand that every heading inside your website on Webflow, every kind of CMS collection page will have some sort of formulaic approach. It's not a creative, every time different. Actually, fundamentally, if you make a CMS collection, chances are your H1 will have a pattern, will have a formula that it follows all throughout different collection items. Even if that formula is almost custom, so the whole H1 is an identifier fully from start to finish, no repeatable parts still. But in many cases, that's bad design. In theory, sometimes it repeats itself. So is that a product where it isn't a lot of frustration of building a programmatic system? I would like to dig deeper. If you want to tweet this at me or something, I would love to kind of learn more about what this is, what's the idea here, and what's the obstacles. So and to finish with Webflow stuff, so that's what I would think is the way. And then another thing is like that 10,000 limit is actually something that a lot of programmatic SEO website builders, people who build those sites, might be scared of, and I heard them being scared of. Once again, watch the video we have on Programmatic SEO where we're looking at the build. It's definitely doable, but yes, I've met people, and yes, some people DM me that I kind of got private use to some builds that I cannot share, but still, it is a thing that can happen. So you're gonna bounce in that limit. So sometimes it doesn't mean that Webflow is not a tool. You might need Viz, and Viz I know is launching the server-side rendering soon, so it's gonna be definitely doable, and a lot of things will be happening. But in theory, this can be a limit, and I have my own ideas, my own kind of personal sites that I wanted to make, and that limit was a little bit in a way. So I had to niche down more, which brings us to the niche down part. Now, niching down in SEO is generally a good thing, but with programmatic SEO, sometimes you don't want to do it. Again, depending on the market. So this can be a good or a bad thing, but in theory, Webflow builds can be amazing for programmatic SEO, because you don't need that much. Understanding of what programmatic SEO is. If you understand Webflow, you kind of already understand it, because you understand that connecting any specific element on your page, on your page, wait one sec. So connecting any specific element on your page to a CMS field, that's what's fundamentally programmatic SEO is. So if you get that part, then you start thinking and more about, okay, so how do I make a system, a CMS collection template design that can support hundreds or thousands of queries that it can be inputted very easily. So if you think about that a little bit more often, you might find that, there are patterns, there are certain things, and those patterns usually show up when you type in a query, in Google, and it can be that auto-filled, I don't know, website builder 4, and then you're gonna get yourself so many ideas for different pages to make. So that's one way to do it without SEO tools. With SEO tools, it's another story. But in theory, if you understand that there are patterns of value, and if you find a way to cater for those patterns with your website at scale, then somehow we call it programmatic SEO. So yeah, guys, that's up for today. I'm glad you liked it. Thanks a lot to everybody for staying. This was awesome. Thanks, Penny. Thanks, Fernando. Thanks, Aruna. Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Omkar, for joining in. I don't know who else was here or will be watching later. Cheers to all you guys. See you next week, and give it a thumbs up, give it a like, share it, subscribe, everything, all the good stuff. If you're watching this later, leave a comment down below who you want to see. Thanks, Benny, for being here. Leave a comment down below who you want to see on this stream. I would love to get back into inviting more guests. It's more common that there are guests here than I'm just solo. So I just had like a few tough things in my life, so it's kind of a bit slower now on that side. But in theory, I'm just really interested who you want to see, because whoever you think needs to be here, I will do my best to get them here. I have a few ideas and a few people that I'm in touch. So, but you never know. It kind of takes time. So yeah, let me know, guys. Love to be here. See you all next Thursday. Don't hesitate to DM me on Twitter or just tweet at me with any ideas, any topic ideas, any questions, anything. Like always, and this was Search Historian for Content Nest. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.